When interest rates skyrocket, borrowing money becomes expensive, buyer demand drops, and housing prices are supposed to crash. It's basic supply and demand. But right now, something is broken. We are watching borrowing costs climb to multi-decade highs, yet home prices still remain too high. In fact, in some markets, they're still creeping up. Why? Because the modern real estate market is facing a systemic glitch called the golden pair of handcuffs. A nationwide game of chicken is being played by current homeowners who refuse to move due to the rising interest rates and stagnant prices. Additionally, a silent, steady decline in the purchasing power of the US dollar is making it increasingly more expensive to build new affordable housing. If you're a potential buyer sitting on the sidelines waiting for a market crash to sweep up a cheap home, you will need to understand how these pieces fit together, because the large market crash you are hoping for may not come anytime soon. Let's look at the first major force, the lock-in effect. Imagine you are an existing homeowner who bought a house or refinanced a few years ago, locking in a historically low 3% mortgage interest rate. Now fast forward to today. Life happens. Maybe your family is growing and you need a bigger place, or you need to relocate for work. But if you sell that house today, your new mortgage is going to be around 7% or higher. On paper, your monthly payment for the exact same size loan would nearly double. So what do? You stay put. Homeowners are flat out refusing to sell because giving up a 3% mortgage feels like throwing away winning lottery tickets. By aggressively raising interest rates to kill buyer demand, the Federal Reserve accidentally killed supply at the exact same time. No one is selling, which means existing housing inventory is completely choked. But the inventory freeze is only half the battle. To see the full picture, we have to look at the macro scale. While everyone is staring at domestic interest rates, the US dollar has been on a steady, quiet decline in overall purchasing power. So why does a weakening dollar matter for a house built locally on American soil? Well, it simply just means that the cost of everything gets more expensive. Importing and transportation of raw materials, labor costs, land, building permits, etc. This creates an absolute input cost nightmare. Because our home building inputs are ever increasing, the local cost to build a brand new home skyrockets, and the builders need to turn a profit as well, putting even more pressure on listing prices. To keep their profit margins alive while facing massive input cost inflation, developers have quietly resorted to cutting corners and reducing build quality. Maybe you have seen the countless videos of home inspections failing with flying colors. Maybe you haven't. Regardless, step into a newly built subdivision today and you'll notice it instantly. Engineered wood composites replacing solid timber, cheaper plastic PEX plumbing lines instead of copper, and faulty framing. We are paying historic premiums for houses that are fundamentally built worse than homes constructed 50 years ago. And here is a hidden trap for the modern buyer. This drop in build quality means the structural clock ticks faster. Within just a few years of moving in, major components, HVAC systems, cheap roofing materials, or foundation seals start breaking down. The true cost of owning a new home is no longer just the mortgage, it's the rapidly accelerating upkeep and deferred maintenance costs. Because new builds are both incredibly expensive and structurally compromised, it can create a premium for older existing houses. A home built decades ago with old growth lumber and solid craftsmanship suddenly becomes a scarce luxury asset. The replacement cost of new construction sets an incredibly high price floor, but the declining quality of those new builds pushes buyers right back into the competitive market for existing homes, keeping prices locked at the top. So here's the grim reality of our current economic landscape. The Federal Reserve hiked interest rates since after the pandemic, due to the sudden inflation spike that occurred post-pandemic. But inflation did not go away. It is still elevated above the 2% mark that the Federal Reserve aims to keep it at. This ultimately froze the sellers in place and continued to prevent buyers from purchasing affordable housing. The majority of homeowners don't want to give up their cheap debt, and buyers don't want to purchase at these price levels. Combined with a declining purchase power and hyperinflated construction costs, the price of existing real estate has effectively built a defensive moat around itself. The demand side of the market is hurting, but the supply side is completely paralyzed. You cannot have a price crash when there is nothing available to buy and nothing affordable to build. Until something breaks the lock-in effect or increases the buyer's purchasing power, existing homes are going to treat high interest rates like a temporary drop in demand. Eventually, people need housing. I don't know if the seller or the buyer will break first, but I believe that housing prices will not come down drastically or at all during the next 5 years. In certain markets that include New York and California, I believe housing prices will continue to increase. Of course, all of this is subject to global economic collapses similar to the dot-com bubble and the 2008 financial crisis, which caused a widespread sudden drop in asset prices. While this can happen, no one can predict the future. As such, this can also not happen within the next 5 years. So what am I doing to plan on affording a house within 5 years at my current age of 28? I have already aggressively paid off all of my debts, built an emergency fund of 6 months worth of my expenses, and I'm continuing to save 25% of my income for a 20% housing down payment in a high yield savings account. In addition to this, I am investing another 10% into low cost broad market ETFs like VTI and VEU. I am also limiting a lot of unnecessary expenses like eating out and opting to meal prep each week. I've been able to save an additional $300 per month just by meal prepping, which I can then put towards a future house. If there's anything you want me to discuss in future videos that relates to economics or finance, please leave me a comment below. I want to build a community where I can, learn from you guys and you guys can learn from me, and we can hopefully build a future that is financially stable for all of us. So please help me accomplish that by liking and subscribing. It really means a lot to me. So thank you all, and I'll catch you in the next one.